All right, we are here for another interview. I am so excited. Another amazing conversation. And I just say that, because I know it's going to be amazing. Every time I talk to this woman, there is something incredible that happens. And I am just so thrilled. If you do not yet know Whitney, I'm going to introduce you to my friend Whitney. We met several years ago through a program that I was a part of, and Whitney was one of the coaches in that program, and I had the utmost pleasure of being coached by her several times. In fact, every time that I saw Whitney was on as the coach, I'm like, all right, today's my day. I'm putting my hand up. And I'm so excited to be able to, whether you know her already and you just get to hear another amazing, more amazing Whitney wisdom and knowledge and just hearing more about her story, or if this is your first time getting to meet her, I'm just so thrilled that I get to be the one to introduce you to her. So I met Whitney, like I said, through this program several years ago, and we were actually just talking before we hit record. I wanted to share this right off the hop, because this is just one of the ways that she's impacted my life. So one of the times that we had a coaching session together. Um, I was in a place in my life, so this was at the beginning, right at the beginning. I think she coached me on January 3rd because I made the post and said yesterday. So the post was made on January 4th. So this was January 3rd, 2023. So over 2 years ago now. And I was personally in a place where I was struggling to know business wise or work wise, calling, how to move forward. I was in a place where my business was in um I don't know if I would even call it like a recession, but it wasn't growing in the way that I had anticipated or hoped or thought. And Wit was coaching me through that, and just I was considering, do I go back to teaching? If you didn't know this, I actually have a background as a high school teacher. But we're trying to decide this. I was also pregnant with our third child, Riley, like I had like just found out in December. So I'm like, I knew that it wouldn't be a long-term thing teaching because I was going to be having a baby in the summer. But Wit coached me through it. And the word she gave me, and this was my word of the year for 2023, was grit. And I ended up looking it up, and the definition was courage and resolve, strength of character. This was the quote that Whitney shared with me that I want to just start off our conversation with because it was so impactful for me. And she said to me, I think the world tells us that you should be happy all the time. You should feel joy all the time. And we lose the ability to build and find and experience grit. I just wonder if this season for you, Ashley, is one of building resilience and getting more gritty. It's not something that you're going to love necessarily, but what if there are things that the Lord calls us into that are not going to be awesome? They're not going to be fun. They don't feel comfortable, and it doesn't feel like it's going to bring a lot of joy or happiness, but they are necessary. And within that, the resilience, that consistency, that faithfulness in that season is what he's asking of us. And so that was a word that I brought into 2023. And it was something just seeing that, you know, I think for me especially, I like being happy. I like being joyful. I like feeling comfortable. And when those challenges and hardships that we face, when we come up against them, that grit that is required, that courage, that strength of resolve, and you know, it doesn't feel comfortable, but yet that is where the growth often happens, is in those seasons um, of perseverance, of of trying new things that are uncomfortable. And I just think it's so interesting here, 2.5 years later, I am being a bit gritty again with this launch of a new thing, something that's been on my heart for a long time. So I just want to thank you, Whit, for that word that you gave me a long time ago that is still relevant. And I just hope that that could also encourage someone else who's listening. So that's my little intro here, but I want you to tell me more about you, especially for the people who don't yet know you, who are listening or watching today. And so just to give a little bit of background, so you are a life coach, you are a motivational speaker, according to your Instagram, which I think is super cool. I would love to hear a bit more about that, but particularly, I know with your podcast, it's the original Fempreneur. That's the name of your
Female
podcast.
entrepreneur. Yep.
Female
Yep.
entrepreneur,
Yep.
not Fempreneur is like
Entrepreneur is awesome too. That, shortens it up. I like it.
the original female entrepreneur. So that idea of that Proverbs 31 woman and helping her find soul rest. I just want to know a little bit more about what led you into life coaching, motivational speaking, and specifically for Christian entrepreneurs.
Yeah, thank you. And actually, thank you so much for that intro. Um, I was also encouraged. The Lord is so kind to bring back around things that He brings through us.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't take credit for those words. I think the Lord is just like really kind and really faithful in those moments. And that word for you just like bounced right back around for me in this season for me too. So thank
Mm-hmm.
you for sharing that. Thank you. Thank you for your faithfulness and just like writing it down and thinking about it. And that was good for me. That was really helpful for me. And I find myself being in a place, I'm a lot like you. I like the comfort too. And so I'm also in a season of being challenged and
Mm-hmm.
being asked to be a little bit gritty. And so that was very timely. And thanks for the honor of being on this. I'm so excited about this conversation and I love you so much. And I remember that conversation sitting there with you that day. And I was just so impressed with like your obedience and reliance on the Lord. And I just wrote down, that season, I think I can see that it increased your reliance on God as provider.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that that happens to me as well in my own life.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you. Yeah. So uh, let's see. I live in Colorado Springs. That's Colorado's home for me. I'm a native to Colorado, which I'm really proud of because I think it's such an awesome state. I have three kids. My oldest is about to be 13 and then 10 and 6. And I've been married to my husband. We're about to celebrate 16 years on Friday. So,
Wow.
yeah, we have a great relationship. He's definitely my best bud, best friend in the whole world, and I love him a lot. So I graduated college and immediately started working for a nonprofit. I did that for 10 years. I worked in human resources in and I was in charge of hiring for all the executives there. And I really quickly found that the thing that I loved the most was like the interpersonal connections and seeing teams get built around just this like common purpose and so I loved seeing the right people in the right seats and I loved hearing the hiring manager like whatever executive I was working with how they would think about putting teams together and how they would think I need this personality or I need this type of person and so I really loved that. But 2 years before I left there, I found a network marketing company and I started there. And I was yearning for time freedom. And I wanted to be able to, I had two kids at the time and I really wanted to just be able to take off and go on vacations and have money, make as much money as I wanted to. And so I got like the entrepreneur itch and I very quickly tripled my income at the nonprofit that I was working at, which isn't hard if you've ever worked at a nonprofit, but because you just don't make that much. But I was there for 10 years. Like I was making a pretty good salary, but I was started to make six figures in this network marketing company and just felt the Lord say, like, kind of release me out of this once was a dream job. And it was an incredible role. So I moved into entrepreneurship in this role and I then found out that I loved coaching the most. I enjoyed all the parties and the trips. Like that's always going to be a piece of me. I joke with my husband that traveling is my love language or one of them. He thinks that's really funny. But
I
I
think we
so I
share
loved those.
that. We share
Yeah.
that.
It's so great. And so I loved those aspects, but I really loved pouring individually into my team members the most. And so, and then I found coaching, and it was like, oh, this is what I was meant for. This is what the Lord has created me for. It was very, very clear. Like one of the clearest times that the Lord has ever spoken or given me a sense of what's next was that moment when I knew I needed to become a coach. And so I left the six figures in the network marketing company and decided that I was going to pursue coaching full time. And that was in 2019. That was at the beginning of 2019. And so I started coaching, and I really quickly found in that I loved coaching women specifically. And I also loved the women that were very ambitious, that had this entrepreneurial spirit. And and so I just started talking to them, and it didn't take long for me to figure out when I was doing these. I would start out and do these evaluations of my clients whenever they would come on with me. We'd do a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I had this kind of extensive process that I'd go through with them. And you know what's interesting, Ashley? The two things that came up out of those that was really interesting because I started to coach women that were entrepreneurs, but not on their business. I was life coaching them in the things around their business that might have been keeping them from being productive or hitting their goals. But like what I found to be the most important things, like the things that we actually need to be focusing on. But business is great, but like the eternal value things is what I got really excited about when we were having those conversations. And so the two things that came out of those evaluations that they would tell me like, oh, this isn't when we were doing the evaluations, this isn't an issue. Like, it's not a big deal. But it was consistent in almost every single woman I talked to.
Mm,
The weakest areas for them were hobbies and female friendships.
mm,
And I started to recognize that sometimes as female entrepreneurs, we're so caught up in like either business or motherhood if we've got kids, and we leave behind ourselves and we leave behind like what how the Lord is speaking to us as his children and our identity outside of being a mom and being in a business. And
mm.
so I really started to press in on what is that, how does this happen? And then what can I do to help so this doesn't keep happening? And because I'm finding that these women are coming to me because they're not fulfilled for some reason or another. And I just had a heart, and I feel like the Lord really has a heart for those women to remind them of identity. And then I just went on this huge deep dive into everything Jamie Winship, if you're familiar with him.
No, no, I'm
Oh
not.
man, if you're not, he's incredible. He's got some podcast interviews that are just my favorite. I'll listen to anything he puts out. But and so I really started to dig deep into identity. And so that is kind of what led me to the soul rest because I was trying to figure out what is it that they are really in need of as a female Christian female entrepreneur, and as I'm looking at these women, like what is actually going to bring peace? If my whole purpose in life, which I believe mine is right now, is how am I pursuing peace? How am I at rest at all times, no matter what my circumstances look like? Then what is the missing piece of that? And where I found it was identity that allowed me to feel rest in my soul, not just physical rest or mental rest. It was, do I know who I am? Do
Mm,
I know who my provider is? Am I in constant communion with him? And then out of that, am I at peace? And so that kind of is how everything else sort of began was what do I need to do to give them how is the Lord wanting to provide them with tools to find this type of rest, and what does that look like? So that's kind of how I got started in coaching and why I'm so passionate about it, and it has continued all up until now.
Well, and I can feel it. Like I just know just your passion for these women, and every time I've listened to you or even been coached by you, I feel that. Like I feel your care and your your desire for us to be free from whatever it is that is is causing, you know, yeah, just unrest, really.
Mhm.
Like, and I think that that is just such a gift that God has given you, and it just exudes out of you. And I love you
Mm.
for it. So,
Thank you. Thank you for that.
yeah, I think like so when you think about these women, like of again, a lot of these women, like you said, that you're working with, often high capacity women, women who are ambitious, who are driven, usually I would say, you know, running businesses, maybe
Hmm.
not always, but running businesses in some sort of entrepreneurial sense. They're entrepreneurial in some way. Why do you think? Why do you think it is that we struggle to access that kind of rest? Like what is it that causes that unrest, would you say?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think what I have found is it usually comes, especially as women, that we almost have something to prove
Mm,
because we're always in competition with one another and culture.
mm,
I think that there's this piece that we have forgotten how God designed women. Like
mm,
why he designed us to be different than men, how we operate different. And so we've lost our identity in that.
mm,
And I think that because of that, we are trying to compete with men at the same level, in the same way, at the same speed. And we forget that God created us to be nurturers and
mm,
to have the capacity for emotional labor that men don't have.
mm,
And so I think, and it's not like this sexist thing. I think it's just losing God's initial design for the differences between men and women and how
mm,
we complement one another and how we partner together. And we think that it shows weakness rather than how, like, if I'm playing into, okay, Lord, if this is how you created me, how do I am I relying on you to know, am I confident that this is the best way? It's like it's just us choosing a different way. So I think that that the reason that we struggle with this is just because we don't really understand who we are and how God created us, and we don't understand what he says about us, and we're not relying on him for the next steps. Like one of
mm,
the things Jamie Winship talks about a lot that I feel like I've adopted, you'll hear him say in every podcast interview he does, Lord, what do you want me to know and what do you want me to do? And I find myself asking God that all day, every day, in every conversation. And what it does for me is it reminds me that cre being created in his image means he is faithful to give me the next step, and his next step is better than mine. And so
mm,
it's when I try to take that control that I will get anxious or get off of the path, or I'm not aligned anymore, or I'm not binding myself to him. And so I think that it really is just a control. It's a competition, and unfortunately, I think it is like this almost Americanized ambition that it's like we always have to follow our dreams and we always have to do all these things. And I just got back from being in Europe for 2 weeks, and it was so interesting to see how just content. Like
mm,
it felt very, look, we spent a lot of time in Sweden. It's a very like efficient, slower pace,
mm,
just like at rest community.
mm,
And it was so interesting because it was like, yes, they're still ambitious and they still have dreams and they still want to accomplish things, but they also have this like very minimalistic, simplistic mindset of, I mean, it's like IKEA, you know? It's like, it's just this very simple, okay, but what's the next thing? And how do we get rid of the noise? And that, I think that's where we get caught up in is we just say yes to everything. We just want to do
yeah.
all of it. And we just want to, we don't want to miss out on anything. We just want it all. And we think that all of these things are going to fill the void. And really it all comes back to identity.
Mm. Such a good like those are such good questions. I'm like, man, okay, I need to be looking this guy up. Like what?
Oh man,
But
Jamie.
like,
Yeah. So
what do
good.
you want me to know and what do you want me to do? And
Yeah.
that I'm gonna, okay, I when we were praying, just to ask the Holy Spirit to take us a direction, and I'm just gonna go here for a second because
Yeah.
I was actually challenged on Sunday. So we just moved, at the beginning, at end of February, and so we're in a new community back home, and we've decided to start attending a church here, and it's actually a new church, so it's not the church we were at before. It's a slightly new community, not really. Like I taught in the community over like a decade ago. So I know some of the families.
Mm.
We know the pastor, well, one of the pastors and his wife we knew before. I worked with his wife, and it's familiar, but also different. Like we're new, but we're also not new. Like
Yeah.
it was
Right.
interesting. One of the ladies there, she was introducing, oh yeah, this is so and so who taught my son, like a decade ago. So it's just so interesting. But on Sunday, my pastor was he brought up this concept that was really challenging to me, and it's funny. I'm throwing him under the bus right here on one of the very first podcasts. But sorry, Albert, but no, maybe he'll be on here one day. But I think I went up to him after the sermon and I was like, I was totally judging you for almost the whole sermon. There's something that like was just in my brain, like, what's going on? Why isn't this happening, a certain way? And it came from the sense of like the knowledge piece because I felt like there was something that was missing for me. I was like, I want to learn. I want to know what to do. And sitting there in the sermon, I was like, tell me what I'm supposed to be, like, tell me what I need some more knowledge, right? I was feeling that. And but yet there was a moment in the sermon where he brought this challenge that like totally convicted me. And I'm like, "Oh Lord, I'm sorry. I should not have been judging him this whole time," because he said something and it totally convicted me about what I was supposed to do.
Mhm.
And and I had this conviction of the Lord being like, okay, you have enough knowledge in this area. You need to go do it. And I was like, okay. So like sometimes we can be in that season where we're like hungry for knowledge or hungry for knowing more. And I think as entrepreneurs, I even remember when we were in this coaching program when I first met you, the coach was just saying like, we just want to keep consuming more knowledge and listening to more podcasts and all this professional development and grow, but it's just knowledge, and then we're not actually going and implementing what we've learned. And that was the challenge from our pastor this week, was like, are we being discipled just for the sake of discipleship, like so we know more about God? Or are we being discipled and we're learning more about who he is and what he's done so that we can also know what he's called us to do in this world and serving other people and spreading the gospel?
Yeah.
And it was so convicting for me because I feel so comfortable sitting in a sermon where I'm learning Greek words and like I'm learning, things I've never heard before. And I'm like, oh, this is so rich and I'm learning so much. And yet, do I just sit there on a Sunday to like be filled up with all this knowledge about
Mhm.
God without allowing that knowledge of who He is to like flow through me and go and love the people that He's called me to love and serve the people He's called me to serve?
Mm.
So, anyways, that was like a very random side tangent, but I
No,
just
I love
that
that. I
that
love that.
because they're both necessary. Like, God, what do you want me to know?
Yeah.
And what do you want me to do?
Yes.
Right? Because if we stay just do, and we have no understanding of who God is or why we're serving, like, social justice, if we're just out there feeding the poor you're feeding the hungry, right? Without a knowledge that they are these people that we're serving are made in God's image, and they are his, the people, like they're his children. Like if we don't know that, then we're just, I mean, there's perhaps temptation to be filled with pride and arrogance that I'm so good because I'm feeding the poor, right? When we know that I am the same as that person I'm feeding, right? Like just
Yes.
because I have food or I have money that I can go and buy my groceries right now in this season, I am not better or above or superior to the person that I am serving, right? And
Yep.
so, we can become so focused on service and helping, but if we don't have the knowledge of who God is and who we are in Him, um, it can be, just as meaningless as if we just sit there and learn all this stuff, but don't actually go and act on it. So,
Yes. So good. Actually, what you made me think of this that um that consuming all of that is it's almost like a protection mechanism because if we can consume our own knowledge, then we have that to rely on rather than relying on the Lord's wisdom. It made me think of 1 Corinthians, I think it's 3:19, where it says wisdom of the world is foolishness to God.
mm,
Because what are we consuming? We're consuming, it's almost like, okay, well, what does this person say about this? And what does that book say about this? And we're consuming all of this information, but we forget that that is foolishness to God still. Like we're only scratching the surface, right? And so what does he want? He wants our obedience and dependence always to be on him. And he
hmm
wants to be able to pivot with us always. And
yeah,
my prayer is that whatever I think I know, whatever knowledge I consume, whatever wisdom I think I might have, I'm like, Lord, you're going to be able to use that, but it's all yours. So I'm open-handed. And if you tell me to drop that and let that go, and that's a word you gave me 10 years ago, and I need to release that and move on to the next thing, or like you don't contradict yourselves. So how am I staying like in close proximity in that thin
mm,
space with you always, so
mm,
that at every moment, at every turn, it is not like, what do I know? What do you want me to know? What do you need to tell me for this person? What
mm,
do you need to tell me for this situation that is outside of the realm of humanity?
mhm,
That's what I want to be. That realm is where I want to live with him. That very thin space between here and him, that he has full access to me always, and he knows he has that. And so it may my the moves that I make or the decisions that I make will look odd to the world. They will
mm,
seem silly to our culture.
mm.
But if it means that I am staying aligned and abiding with him, I choose it every time.
Amen. So good. I think we could just end there. So
Yeah.
good. So good. I want to, as we just, I want to move to a spot here. Because I'm sure already people have heard enough and they're like, all right, where do I get me more of this woman? Where do I get more Whitney? Because it just, and again, not because of, you're amazing, I can say, but honestly, your obedience to God is just, it is encouraging, and I want to spend more time with you. So I'm sure there are many people listening to this right now that are feeling the same way. So I want to talk a little bit more about what you do right now, how you serve women, and I know there's something exciting coming up that I want to talk about too. So I'm gonna go first with like the work that you're doing right now, and I want you to just kind of give us a little bit of a picture of that. So from what I know, and things could have changed since I last knew this, but obviously you have your podcast that we talked about, which anyone can go and binge and listen to. Awesome conversations, wisdom from you. And is it always, are they solo episodes, all of them, or have you had other guests on the podcast?
There have been quite a few guests in there. They're kind of
Yeah,
sprinkled in a little
yeah,
bit.
I love that.
Yeah, um I wish I was like a really consistent person in my entire life. I'm trying to be more like that, but I'm sort of a little bit of a free spirit in some ways. So sometimes I was like, I'm gonna do an episode every single week, and I'm gonna interview someone, and then I'd skip a week. And so, but
Yeah.
there are a lot of interviews and a lot of really good interviews. Those are
Yeah.
actually my favorite
Yeah.
ones.
Well,
So
and I
yeah,
mean,
there's them in there.
someone could just go find you if they've never heard you before. And there's like over 100, are there not? Like
There, I think
podcasts?
right now it's on pause, but I think I ended at 77. So I'm close, getting
77.
there.
So
But
close,
yeah.
very close. So I think people can enjoy 77 for a
Yeah,
while.
there's a little bit. There's a few in there.
So okay, so you've got your podcast. You're also is so I'm just gonna say what I think is there and then you correct me if I'm
Okay.
wrong. So you have a membership from what I understand called the Haven, and then a mastermind, the Well, and one-on-one coaching available. So is that all what's happening right now or what? I should have just asked you, okay, Whitney, what how are
No,
you
that's
serving
okay.
women right now? And yeah,
Mm.
like just talk a little bit more about what that looks like.
Yeah. Well, so the Haven is also on pause at the moment. I was feeling this pull from the Lord. I had been doing it for about a year. And I sense from him that he's asking me to move into kind of a retreat space for
Mm,
women. I love the memberships and I love the consistency of that. I love being in memberships where I know I've got something, if I need to be gone one week or pop in the next, it's super helpful.
mm,
I do that with my own coach. But what I was sensing from him was he's been kind of calling me into, I want you to prepare spaces for women to come and encounter me in a way that maybe they haven't experienced before. And so he's been placing some people in my life and kind of just igniting that. And
mm.
so I got a sense that he was saying, just lay down the Haven for right now, and we're going to bring it back in a different way. And so we're kind of, you're catching me like right in the middle of that transition.
I love it.
So I did, but I still have lots of material out there for that. The Well is I'll have one in 2026. I do one a year.
Okay.
And that is specifically designed just for women that have been in business for a long time that are wanting to kind of like I talked about at the beginning, have a safe place to process the things that they may not be able to process with their employees or downlines or other women or friends that may not quite understand where they're at. And so that will be coming in 2026. So primarily I'm still doing one-on-one coaching with clients right now. And so, and what's interesting, Ashley, is I feel like the coaching industry has shifted a lot in the last 5 years,
Mhm.
especially for me. And where once we got into coaching, there was this push for everything has to be really high ticket and you have to like be in this exclusive thing. And I really feel like coaching should be accessible for everyone. Everyone deserves to have a life coach, I think. Like I love life coaching so much. And so I wanted to make it really accessible. So I revamped all of my programs and pulled back on a lot of the offers that I had out there because I really wanted it to just be available for anyone who wanted to get coached. And
Mm.
so now I'm just doing one-on-ones, and that is great for right now. And then I'm working on a book at the moment and then working
Woo!
on this kind of rehashing this retreat style offer, I guess you could say. So that's kind of where I'm at the moment. But yeah, podcasting, and then my website is whitneykroneberger.com. So but my favorite thing, and I love talking to you on Instagram, but my favorite thing is Instagram, just like talking back and forth and then, swapping numbers and just being just like on the daily communicating with people is by far my favorite thing. So like if I get a DM, I'm like the best part of my day right there.
Literally.
So good.
We agree on that for
Yeah.
sure. And I
Yeah.
think, I mean, I said to you when you were in Europe, I'm like, more of this, please. I like being in your pocket. Like,
Yes.
you don't have to take me all around Europe. I know that we don't always go to Europe. I mean, I've never really actually ever been to Europe for 12 hours at a layover one time in
Oh, that
Heathrow.
counts. I think that counts definitely.
But just that it is something so unique and special, in this world. And I'm trying to convince some of my friends back in Kenora that I've now left and lived 22 hours apart from. I'm like, because they're like, oh, we'll see your videos. And I'm like, yeah, you'll see my videos, but I don't get to see your videos. I'm like,
Yes, that's right. Do
and then,
videos together. Go
yeah.
together. Yes.
But I'm like, it is so fun to be able to stay in touch and just connect with people around the world. Like, for goodness sakes, I've never been to Colorado, but
Mm.
I have a friend in Colorado.
Yes, you have a friend, you have a place to stay in Colorado. 100%. It's so great.
Amazing.
Put it on the
Um,
list.
so I want to just talk about what's coming up here, and
Yes.
then we will wrap up with my final question I have for you. I kind of like to do a question like this at the end, but before we get there, I just want you to talk about this upcoming workshop that you have,
Ooh,
because
yay.
it kind of goes along with some of the things we've been talking about, and I really think that this could be a cool way for people to get introduced to working with you, or just, I mean, if they're curious or interested in this topic, I think it would be something really great. Even as I was like, preparing for today, I'm like, okay, I need to go to this workshop. But yeah, so it's called the Sisterhood Shift. And you're talking about having courageous conversations, cultivating healthy female friendships. Like, why is this topic so important to you personally? Why have you decided to do this? Who are you partnering with? Where did this workshop come from?
Yeah. Oh man. I get excited about this. So credit goes to my best friend, one of my best friends, Brooke Mikolas. Brooke is she and I have been friends since I think I met her the week, maybe the couple weeks after I got married. So we've known each other for at least 16 years. And when I was in Europe, my mom lives with us. So she was watching kids, and then Brooke had my kids a lot of the time. Like, where she was there for my first being born at home. She was like, I mean, she's been in it with me. So credit goes to her. Brooke and her husband own a boutique hotel called Kinship Landing here in Colorado Springs. They're founders. She was like, the Lord gave her the vision for this hotel. It's and very focused on community and creating adventure and having people in a place where they can have hard conversations, have courageous conversations, and then also like have fun and play together and find joy. So anyway, she came to me and she was like, she's been doing these workshops. In fact, I just went to one that she did a couple months ago called Just in Case, which was basically a workshop to prepare in case somebody close to you dies, like what to do to prepare in for death, which sounds kind of grim,
Yeah.
but actually was so helpful to think about like, what do I need to do to prepare in case I, die unexpectedly? So she put on that one. She's doing a workshop for parents of neurodivergent kids. She's got one. I can't remember when the next one is that she's doing. But anyway, she's like, everything is surrounding this courageous conversations theme,
Mm.
where and she is so good at this. She just knows how to come in and have a conversation with someone that is kind and clear, and that forces you to dig deeper. And
Mm.
so she came to me. We've been best friends for a long time, and she was like, I think we need to do this workshop. And I was so honored that she asked me to partner with her on it. And the reason that I feel really strongly, I kind of mentioned this at the beginning, when I do those evaluations, the two things that come up that women disregard, don't think are important, but are their lowest scores in the entire, I mean, even below marriage, like they'll give me a 3 in marriage out of 0 to 10, 3 in a marriage. And they're like, female friendships, oh, 1. I don't even have any friends. And I'm noticing this theme. As I was seeing this theme, I'm asking the Lord, what do you want me to know in this? Like, why is this important? And then what do you want me to do? And so when she came to me about it, I was like, this is so important, because female friendships are very hard, I think.
Mm.
Not only have we been in competition all throughout middle school, high school, college, and then as we enter into motherhood, it's like, are you doing this? How are you doing this? And are you breastfeeding the right way? And are you having them at home or in the hospital or whatever, all these things. And so what happens is, especially women in business too, is like, we tend to isolate and back up because we only have so much capacity and energy, and we pour that into our marriage, which we should, and into our relationship with the Lord, which we should. And then the rest goes to our kids. And then we have nothing left for ourselves and certainly for anyone else. And then we go to a new place, or we don't. And to have those really awkward conversations with new people or women, to like let the guard down and be vulnerable, and then trust that they're going to stick around after we tell them all of our deepest, darkest secrets. That takes a lot of courage. And so, but I I know that I am a better wife and a better mom and a better follower of Jesus because of these specifically these three women that I've got in my foxhole. We talk every day on Marco.
Mm.
And this, I've got a friend in Kansas. I talked to her. I went to India with her 20 years ago on a mission trip. We talk every single morning. Every morning when we wake up, we talk on the phone at least for 5 minutes. Um, and then but right before this, got off a call with one of my best friends that lives in Arkansas that is just she has been in a season of suffering for a long time. We're talking like 4 years. And I've been weeping with her for this. I mean, it has been a season of suffering. And I see the Lord at work in these relationships, and I see how he is sharpening me through these relationships. And it is something that I have found is pretty rare, actually,
Mm.
to have the deep conversations that aren't just the competitive, I work next to you, um, or like some of the women that I'm surrounded with, they have no idea what coaching looks like, and besides me being in it, and so we don't share a lot of things in common besides our love for Jesus. But we differ on things politically, and but the thing I've realized is that God works through those relationships because we need vulnerability and we need someone to turn us back to Him and to say, like, hey, Whit, like, you're making a mistake here and you need to confess this. And thank you for confessing it to me. That's a safe place for that to happen. And then you need to go work this out with the Lord. And it has been time after time after time that these women have challenged me and then have loved me through the process. When I'm just making a huge mistake or just stumbling through all of this, love me regardless. And I saw a study, I can't remember exactly where it came from, but it was talking about how when men and women, when we get old and we die, husbands might lose a wife and they typically will go find someone else pretty quickly because the companionship and all the things, it's like, gosh, I don't know how to be alone. And I don't, they don't have a lot of male friendships. Women, like, we're pretty good. Like maybe we get remarried, but it's usually the women that have the female friendships that are fine and content because they've spent years cultivating those. So
Mm.
anyway, this is a long-winded answer to say I'm very passionate about what the Lord can do through female friendships, and it's not easy. They're not easy to come by. They're not easy to start. They're not easy to maintain. It takes a lot of intentionality, and I don't think I've done it perfect, but I certainly give a lot of credit to the ladies that have held me accountable for 15 plus years to be consistent with them and to create vulnerability and safety with them. So anyway, I am excited to do this with her. It's coming up on July 12th. I mean, it's a short workshop, but I think that I think it will give some tools to how do you have those conversations when you're in a long relationship with someone. How do you work through disagreements and tension and how do you do that, and how is that actually really really healthy, and how can you get on the other side and be better for it, and that'll translate to marriage in a lot of ways too. But yeah, so that's coming up here in a month or so.
It's so exciting. I love it. I'm like, oh, it's so needed. Even as you were talking, I'm like thinking about different things that have happened in my friendships over the
Yeah.
years and different friendships that I'm like, okay, I need to be more intentional with that. And I think it is so powerful. We just had my girlfriend and her family were here. They were our first overnight guests this weekend at our new house, and I hadn't seen her in 7 years. But it was like I embraced her, and it was like home. Like,
Yeah.
this is someone that has been a friend for 19 years. And it's like I don't feel like I'm old enough to have a friend for 19 years,
Yeah,
but
you certainly don't look
I
old
am.
enough to have a friend for 19 years.
I am. But it's so, and her sweet daughter, like her daughter is 11 turning 12, and this girl, she's just like, could you have imagined doing this when you guys met when you were
Mm.
15? She's just kind of seeing the vision of like, my mom has been friends with this woman for 19 years. Like, that's much, almost double of how long I've been alive. And it's like,
Yeah.
but seeing longevity and as a young girl, knowing that like I could build friendships that are going to last.
Mm.
And it was so special and just so cool. And I had to be careful what I said. He's like, "What did you guys used to do?" I'm like, "Well, we met when we were 15."
Yeah.
We were pretty
It's a lot
boy
of
crazy.
life. That's right. That's right.
But praise God, he brought your daddy and Derek along. These
So good.
godly men who, yeah, we couldn't have imagined at that time. So, um, thank you, Whit. I think I could be here with you a long time because like I said, like you just exude God's love, and I can just see your kindness and your compassion and your care, and I've experienced it and I've felt it myself, and I'm just so grateful for you, and grateful that you came and just sat with me today, and that we could record this conversation um, for even if it's one person that needs to hear this
Yeah.
and have hope in her female friendships, in her marriage, in her motherhood. Like you said, it translates when we
Hmm.
learn these skills, when we learn to surrender to the Holy Spirit and ask Him to guide us. It's going to transcend in all of our relationships. So I want to close today. I want to just think about this woman who is listening right now, and maybe, she's feeling unseen, whether it's in her motherhood or in her marriage or in her friendships. And maybe even lonely, like that feeling of being unseen or feeling lonely or isolated. Like, what is one thing that you would want to say to her as we end our conversation here today?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Definitely been there myself too.
Mm.
I think that uh if I were sitting there with her, I would want her to know that this world is really lonely. Like there's if we're looking for to be seen by others, and if we're looking to feel comfort and compassion, and if we're like trying to gain those things from other humans, we're going to be really disappointed.
Mm,
That those things are secondary only to knowing and being known by God, by our creator and the one who knows us the best.
mm,
And so if I were sitting with her, I'd probably be grabbing her hands and just saying like, there is so much that God wants to show, that God wants to reveal to you. And if only we would ask. And
mm,
if only we would just take a moment to just say, like, who do you say that I am? And what have you created me for? And what is the reason that you even have me here? And what do you want me to know? And what do you want me to know about you? What do you want me to know about me? I think there's significance in understanding the way that we were created by the creator himself. And when we understand that first, that creates fulfillment and purpose. And then everything else is just cherry on top. And
mm,
so I would dig really deep into those questions, and I would just spend some time trying to let the Lord give some space to let him speak.
mm,
And sometimes I think that's really hard because if we're also very self-critical, and if we tend to say horrible things about ourselves or have a pretty low value of ourselves, it's hard to create space to let the Lord say kind things to us. And
mm,
so sometimes it just takes another person saying those things first to create a door. But God is always faithful and will answer that request. And so creating a little bit of space. Right before I left for Europe, I went to a silent retreat with Brooke actually.
mm,
And there were also there was 25 women there, but it was just a really cool weekend. We weren't silent the whole time. It was like go and make meals and wake up and eat breakfast and then start silence. We did 6 hours of it. But it's my second year going to that, and just giving God space to speak and not feeling rushed is like one of the greatest things I can do and one of the greatest gifts I can give myself. And so I'd say create a little bit of some space to be unhurried.
Mm, I'm just taking that right now. Like, okay. I don't know if it
Yeah.
was for someone else too, but I'll take that because yeah, I needed that. So
Mm-hmm.
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you
You're
so
welcome.
much for today. I am just so grateful for your time. I'm so grateful for your yes, like that you decided
Oh,
to.
easiest yes I could have made right there. You were like,
I,
would you? Yes.
yes.
Doesn't
I'm
matter what you're gonna say. Heck yeah.
Thank you so much, Whitney. And
Thank you,
I
Ashley.
will put some information in the show notes just so they know how to connect with you. You had mentioned your website and also Instagram, and your podcast, and then this upcoming workshop. Just to clarify, is the workshop, is it a local workshop? Is it,
It
yeah.
is it's in Colorado Springs. There's a possibility that we may do others that we'll do virtually, but this one is
Yeah.
it's in person in Colorado Springs. So if you want to make a trip, you
Perfect.
got a place to
Yeah,
stay. But yeah,
let's
it's
do
coming up.
it.
Yep.
All right, who wants to come with me? Colorado
Yeah.
Springs. All right, thank you so much, Whit. I hope you have a wonderful day, and thank you for those who are listening today. We hope that this conversation that we had today was encouraging and uplifting to your soul.